Are you tired of the non-stop hustle and grind? Welcome to Life in Business, the podcast for business owners who want success without sacrificing life. I'm Libby Langley, your host, award-winning, no BS, straight-talking business coach, Amazon best-selling author, and the queen of easy business. Join me to learn simple and practical strategies for growing your business, your profits, and your confidence, and for having fun too. Here's this week's episode. Hello, Libby Langley here, and I'm going to tell you today how you can deal with brain pickers. It's one of the kind of curses in the online world in the business world of, can I just pick your brains? And I've got some really good strategies for you today on how you can deal with this. I'm going to tell you the reasons why people might approach you with this, what you can do about it, and also kind of how you can turn it into a business opportunity, into a sale. So we've got lots of practical stuff. I'm going to be covering with you today. And this episode has come about because, I've been in business a long time, as you know, 12 years. And particularly when I focused my business on social media, I got asked questions all the time. What do you think about this? Or what does this mean? Or and in the early stages of business, certainly I would answer them, right? I would deal with them. But then as I got more experienced and my experience and my was reflected, and skills were reflected in my prices more, once I kind of built the business, then it just became a bit like, do you know what? I don't see why I should do all this stuff for free, because it is, I don't know, you shouldn't, right? That's the whole point of being in business. Being in business is an opportunity for us to make money for ourselves and deal with things in the way that we want to, and build the life that we want. And if you give everything away for free, then you're never going to be able to do that. So, caveat there, because there is lots of stuff you can give away for free, and I would encourage you to, but there's controlled ways of how to do that, and that's something else that I'm going to tell you today. So I would maybe kind of guess that you find it a bit frustrating, when someone says, can you just help me with, can you just tell me, and you know damn well that you can answer the question in 2 minutes because you're so skilled, you're so experienced, and that's what you do for a living, right? And it's really tempting to just answer the question. But the trouble with that is that you could spend all your time fielding messages of people who are not going to buy from you and just want free information from you. Or you could spend a lot of time it's just not productive, right? Necessarily. Having to focus all your time and energy and effort on not necessarily time wasters, but certainly tire kickers isn't the way to run a business, and isn't the way that I would encourage you to run your business. So the most frustrating thing is that you want to help, but why should you do it for free, right? Why should you be a freelancer, self-employed business person, franchise owner, whatever you are? But why should you support people for free? The answer is you shouldn't. You absolutely shouldn't, right? This is not something that anybody needs to do. So there's kind of a process, right, that I would go through with these brain pickers. Because I still get these questions, right? I still get these questions all the time, multiple times a week. And the first thing that I do is kind of try and analyze why they're asking, right? The reason behind the question. And this takes experience and it takes knowledge of your target audience, but it is really useful. So the reason they're asking you can you just help? Can I pick your brains about something? First and foremost is because they trust you, which is amazing, right? So yay for you, that's really good. They've quite possibly known you a long time or been in your orbit for a long time. They know you'll know the answer, and they know that you'll be able to give them the answer really quickly. And that is all amazing validation for the fact that you've got a really good reputation. So take it as a good sign that you're doing something right. The fact that the people are asking you these questions, yeah, the fact that people are getting in touch with you, that's all great. Yeah, that's all absolutely great. And the reason they're asking you or trying to kind of get your support without paying for it, I suppose, is also the fact that they might not realize. They'll know you'll know, right? Like people ask me, they know that I'll know, but they don't necessarily equate that to the fact that, for me to be able to answer questions, my experience to be able to answer the questions I get asked started, flipping heck, I don't know, probably when I first got my first job 30 years ago, or however long ago it was. But it's because I've trained, I've invested in my own professional development, I've got qualifications, I've got learned experience, I've developed numerous skills. I'm extremely good at what I do and supporting people. I've got tons of practical experience, and I've worked with nearly 6,500 business owners over the last 12 years, right? And all that is the reason that I can answer the question just so quickly. And that is all good. Yeah, it's all good. It all shows that everything's been worthwhile. But they might not realise or kind of consciously kind of acknowledge that that's the reason. And so they know you'll just know. They know it'll take you 2 minutes. And it's like, yeah, but hang on a minute. Hold on a minute. So that's one of the reasons they're asking. Another reason that they might be asking you is because they've had a previous bad experience with someone. They might have invested with someone in doing the same thing that you do or a similar line of work that you work in, and they might have had a really bad experience with that. And in which case there's empathy to be given there, right? If you've invested to work with somebody and you've spent multiple thousands of pounds on working with them and you haven't seen the results that you hoped, that's really frustrating. And it's kind of soul destroying, right? Because you've spent the money that you could have spent it on a holiday, right? And instead you've taken this punt and it hasn't worked out. And that's a rite of passage in business. This year, 2023, I worked with a business coach. I am a business coach, but yes, I still work with business coaches. And I worked with a business coach for 3 months. And honestly, utter waste of money. I knew more about the particular thing that I wanted help with than they did. And I don't know, it just wasn't a kind of engaged relationship. And it wasn't mega expensive. I spent about a couple of grand on it, which is a chunk of money over 3 months. But wasn't great. But I know that part of that was on me. I've got to take responsibility for that because I made the choice to work with that particular person, and I had perhaps a few niggles. And I should have listened to that. So there's no blame on anybody else or anything like that. And it certainly would not ever stop me investing again in myself. It just absolutely wouldn't. And since then, I've joined a mastermind. I'm in a entrepreneur membership community, and I go to regular events as well to continue my own professional development. So one bad experience does not a future dictate. And I think that's kind of important for you to remember, because if someone says to you, I've worked with someone like you before and I've spent a lot of money and I don't feel I got anything for it. Fine. Okay. That happens. But it wasn't you. Well, I hope it wasn't you. But it wasn't you who was giving this bad experience. So that doesn't matter. It's absolutely zero to do with you. And it's zero reason for you helping someone for free. Okay. So what do you do? You know that they're asking you because you've got a good reputation and you'll be able to help them. And they might have had a previous bad experience, so be a little bit scarred. But the fact that they've asked you, they trust you, they know you, they want that information from you is the thing to kind of remember, right? So what do you do? What do you do with this? Well, first of all, any questions that you get asked, they're they're content ideas, right? They're absolutely content ideas. So make a note of them, and you can turn them into blog posts, podcast episodes, any social media content. You can utilize these. So never think that it's a waste of time, because whatever the question is amazing, because that's something perhaps that you can address on a sales page or you can talk about. It's good to know these questions, okay? So first and foremost, embrace it, make a note of it, yeah? And in order to kind of direct it somewhere else, so let's look at the immediate response to this question first and foremost. So you could say to them, funny you asked that question, because I'm running a Q&A session live on Instagram, live on Facebook, in my Facebook group, wherever, and I will answer that. And, you book onto it, listen to it, I'll answer that question fully for you. And the reason that that's different to just replying to their message is it's demonstrating that you do know the answer to a wider audience. And obviously, if you're responding to it, so like the previous episode of my podcast was an Ask Me Anything episode. So I asked people to submit in questions, and I answered them. I answered 3, I think, in that podcast episode. And it's kind of similar to brain picking, right? But I chose to invite it. I selected 3 questions from the ones that I got, which I knew would be really good answers and demonstrate my skill and experience to listeners of this podcast. So there's ways of utilizing this. And then you can say to the person who asked, dealt with this, going to deal with this. Either sign up for this masterclass where I'll answer the question, or listen to this podcast episode, or read this blog, or whatever it is that you've done with it. So it's really good. It's a really good way to get new content for things. And this user-generated content is really important because it's what people actually want to hear, right? And it's the questions that people have actually got. Now, don't go into all the detail, because that's what people pay you for. But certainly there's space to give some really nice answers to stuff and whet people's appetites for working with you in the future. You can also start a conversation with someone. So if somebody says, can I pick your brains about something? You're like, right, what's the issue? Then they'll say something else, you say something back. And actually, you could be able to uncover something really juicy that you could either help with or direct them to something else, another paid offer that you have, or to someone else, okay? It might be something that isn't with you, but the conversation starter is a real kind of relationship cementer. So the more that you don't just dismiss people out of hand or ignore them, that if you're getting 50 of these a day, right? Okay, that's a different situation. But if you get a few a week, say, or a month, you might get very few. But if you get a few a week, then it's a way to encourage a deeper personal relationship, and that will add to this trust. Yeah. So you could direct them as well to a paid offering. You could say, I've got a mini course about that. Perfect. Here it is. It's £27. Something that I direct people to is that I will say to them, they say, can I pick your brains about something? I'm like, yes, absolutely you can. Quite happy with that. You can, here's the link to book a 30-minute call with me. It's £50, and you can ask me as many questions as you like during that session. So I call this a quick clarity boost. It's a mini strategy session, and it's a real genuine thing. And you can, the links in the show notes if you want to book yourself on one of these. And I find that that's really useful, because it's not if I just responded and said, oh yeah, great, my coaching starts, I can absolutely help you with all this. My coaching starts from £995 a month. That's a big kind of jump, and like a big jump, almost disconnect from, oh, can I just ask you a question? Can you just help me with something? To, yeah, it's going to be £1,000 a month for a 6-month commitment. It's kind of a big jump. But to get to talk to someone on a 30-minute call that's £50, and you're absolutely guaranteeing they can, there's no sale, no sell during that, just here to answer your questions and give you support, then it's a much better fit and fix for what they need. And it's fair, right? It's fair on you. It's reflective of your skills and your experience. But another thing that you could think about, depending on where your price point is for your service and kind of how your services operate, one thing that you could do is you could offer them a free conversation. Yeah. So you could offer them a 30-minute consultation for free, but with the caveat that they provide you with a testimonial. And you can agree that, you can say that emphatically before you offer them any dates and times. And that is, it's kind of payment to a certain extent, but certainly if you're starting out in business or you're changing the direction of your business, or you just simply don't have enough testimonials on your LinkedIn profile or wherever, or on your website, that can be a really good solution for offering out a session. Tell you what, how about this? I'll do you a 30-minute session where you can ask me anything you want, and instead of payment, you agree to write me a testimonial. And you can even write a template for this testimonial to make it easier for people. But that's a really nice way of you getting something rather than just giving your time for nothing, because there just is no reason why you should do that. Okay, there just is no reason why you should do that. So there's a few kind of ideas of ways that you can deal with these brain pickers. And if you have created, you've got lots of content kicking about, if you have a podcast, if you have a blog, if you have social media even, and you've written posts about this particular issue before, you can send a link to that and say, oh yeah, it's a great question. Here's some further information on it, or here's how I answered it for somebody else. And what would be quite helpful for you in order to make that easier, rather than, sure, I did a post about this in 2021. Let me find that, which is quite a time-wasting exercise to have to go through. But if you create a spreadsheet of all your content, or whatever medium works for you, but I find spreadsheets quite useful. And you can put all your content in there. And if it's kind of information post like that, then you can put what keywords or what category it would fit into, so that you can easily search for it. And you can order your spreadsheet like that, and you can easily search for it. So that's a way of kind of time-saving stuff. And you'll find the more that you kind of get into the habit of doing this, and the more that you are open to receiving questions, actually, the more clients you convert, which, yay, is amazing. There'll be more people who pay you money to work with you. And also you'll have better content, because you will have this user-generated content. So it's what they want to know, right? It's what they want to see, and it's what they want to hear. And that's really so important. Like GoPro, when they first started, their content was something like 80% user generated. And it was on YouTube then, back in the day. And they would say, send us your videos and it will share it. And that's how they created their brand. That's how they built their brand. They didn't do the market. I mean, that's marketing genius, but they didn't do it, right? They didn't create the stuff. They got people to submit what they wanted to see, and what they wanted to see was themselves doing really cool stuff and being videoed with their GoPro. So there's all sorts of ways that you can utilize, just by a bit of kind of clever and lateral thinking. You can use these questions rather than just like, oh God, don't ask me, whatever, bore off, go pay me some money. Fine. You might feel like that. You might feel a bit frustrated, but actually there's lots of ways, both paid and kind of use sourcing, if that's an expression, that you can deal with things like this. And it's a much healthier and fun way of doing it. And it's almost like kind of gamifying your business. You know, someone asks you a question, you're like, oh, how can I use this? How can I use this? Shall I sell them a session? Or shall I use this to create some content? Or shall I have a conversation with them and nurture them for a few months until they're ready to buy? Or is it all of the above? And it's probably all of the above, right? But that's really, really clever marketing. So how to deal with brain pickers is to first and foremost receive the validation, receive the praise, receive the accolade, absolutely, because that's the reason that they are contacting you. Yeah. So absolutely accept that compliment because, yay, you're doing some good stuff. And then to come up with a kind of 3-step process for dealing with it. So talk to them more and find out what's kind of going on. And from that, you'll get loads more gems of how to focus on this and how to deal with this and how to shape your content accordingly in the future. And then use this content, these questions to create more content and have a kind of system for directing people to stuff. So I always will direct people to my 30-minute quick clarity boost session. And I'll send them a link. I'll say, yep, brilliant. Here you are. Here's the link to book a session with me. Ask me anything that you want. Time is yours. My brain is yours. That brain that you want to pick, yours for 30 minutes for £50. And generally speaking, that works. Yeah. Generally speaking, that works for me and that converts them. And if they don't want to do that, it's like, okay, here's some free stuff. Fine. Listen to my podcast, read my blog, buy my book, whatever. Then if people aren't, and you will find this in your business, you will kind of get to know this in your business. If people aren't willing to invest even a very small amount in themselves, they're probably not the people you want to work with, because if they're not willing to invest a very small amount in themselves to get a specific and burning question that they've got right now, they don't necessarily sound like the kind of client that you want, because they don't necessarily sound as if they're committed. If they really want to change and grow, do you see what I mean? So it's a good kind of filtering system for that. So yeah, it's interesting. Funny, there was a guy he came to, I did some workshops. I did lots over the years, about a 7-year period, I think. I did an assortment of funded workshops for a local authority. And so I was paid, but people could come for free. And there was somebody who came to a dozen of them, maybe over the years. And he would keep in touch, and he came to a few masterclasses that I ran over the years and never bought into anything that I did. And he would sometimes say, oh, yeah, I've got a question about so-and-so. And they were becoming ever more complicated and ever more technical, particularly to do with setting up a Facebook page and connecting it to other sources. It was quite complicated anyway. And I could have answered it, right? But it's not just here's your one-line answer. It was, I need to look at your account. I need to see what's going on behind the scenes. I need to, that it's like proper work. And I said to him, I can sort all this for you. I can help you with all of this. This is how long it's going to take me, roughly. This is what it's going to cost. Never wanted to do it. And for a couple of years, we kind of toed and froed with this. Not every day, blimey, maybe every 8 months or something. That was another message or another question. And I just wouldn't, I just thought, I'm not helping you with this unless you pay me, because these are quite, why should I? In the end, he unsubscribed from my email list. So it's like, fine, okay, go find someone else. But it's very strange behavior to not want to get the expert, not be willing to pay the expert to answer the question that you have. And don't get me wrong, we can find out 90% of what we need to know by Googling stuff, right? But that's very different to having someone giving you personalized answers, personalized support, and helping you to actually achieve the thing that you want to achieve. Googling is brilliant if you've got the kind of brain that allows you to then unpick all that and analyze it and action it. But most people haven't, yeah? Most people haven't, which is why we learn stuff, which is why we sign up for courses, which is why we take on coaches, because actually it's easier and it helps us get the things done. So if you have a burning question that you want to ask me, then you can message me on Instagram at Libby Langley, or you can message me on LinkedIn. Just search for Libby Langley, you'll find me. And I will either use it for a future podcast episode when I do another Ask Me Anything, or I will create some content out of it, or I will direct you to my quick clarity boost 30-minute session on Zoom for £50. And that's how I will deal with it. And it might be the start of a really super long-lasting friendship and working relationship. Who knows? But I'm absolutely open and receptive to getting these questions because of all the reasons I've said, because they're so useful and they're so helpful in building content for the future. So approach them. I want you to approach them with a positive attitude, but I also want you to have a strategy for dealing with them, so you're not just giving all your stuff away for free. If you're going to give stuff away for free, which you will, which I do in this podcast every single week, as you know, it's full of strategies and tips and tactics, but it's in my controlled environment and millions of people can listen to it if they want to. Yeah. So that's the secret. Stay in control of what you're doing so that you can utilize it for the future rather than just having to respond to everybody individually. So that's been today's lesson and how to deal with brain pickers. I hope you found that really useful. I'd love to know what you think and how you deal with stuff. So do message me. My inbox is always open. And I'm going to see you next week. Be in your ears again next week. Thanks ever so much for joining me. A bientôt. Thank you for listening to Life in Business. Please make sure that you subscribe or follow so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's show, please leave a review, as it helps others to find the podcast and spread the word that there's an easier way to do business. If you want to chat with me about today's episode or suggest a topic for the future, I would love to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram at Libby Langley. See you next week.